Better Buildings for Humans is powered by Advanced Glazings, makers of the Solera line of products. Solera is the leading glass glazing made specifically for architectural daylighting and with extreme insulation performance. Learn more at advancedglazings.com. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Better Buildings for Humans. I'm your host, Joe Menchefski, and this is a podcast where we take a look at the impact that the built environment has on our health, our wellness, our productivity, our general joy of being alive, and we also take a really good hard look at sustainability and sustainable design as well. Now, for weeks and weeks and weeks, I've done episodes about sustainable design of buildings and about operation of buildings. I've not done anything about the actual construction process or the demolition process, which produces a tremendous amount of waste that can often end up in landfills, which is not what we want. We want to move towards a circular economy. And in that vein, I've got a really great guest today. I've got Todd Thomas from Woodchuck.ai. Todd, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be on this interview.
Yeah, Todd does really interesting things using technologies to recycle materials from construction waste. Todd, you've had an amazing career. I've gone through your page on LinkedIn and, incredibly diverse career for sure. I want you to tell us a little bit about your background and the road with the emphasis on the pathway that led to the creation of Woodchuck.ai.
So you're right. I'm really fortunate. I've got to do a lot of fun projects across a whole bunch of different industries: construction, manufacturing, automotive, telecommunications. But I said there is a common thread, and that is really emerging technologies. Using emerging technologies to drive efficiencies and to create new commercialization opportunities in these verticals. And that's really exactly what Woodchuck is doing. So I've done a couple of different companies where we have built AI platforms to drive efficiencies within a particular vertical. And what Woodchuck is doing is we're really looking at construction, manufacturing, and specifically the waste hauling and the material processing for those industries. And I would say right now, today, this vertical is pretty much void of technology. All the processes out there are very manual, very labor intensive, not very cost effective. And so what we're doing is taking AI technologies that have been matured in other verticals, and we're applying them to this vertical and driving some pretty significant efficiencies, which really kind of flips that paradigm on sustainability. A lot of times when people think about sustainability, they think, oh my goodness, we'd like to, but it's just so expensive. Well, sustainability done well should be economical. If you're able to take materials and find additional value for them or circulate them, right? You should be able to take waste into value. That should be a cost reducer. So it should drive efficiencies, cost reduction, and reduce landfill usage. And that's exactly what Chuck does. And so it works really well. So we're able to reduce carbon in the built environment while simultaneously reducing our clients' costs.
Right on. Okay, so let's go right away into Woodchuck. Let's talk about it. I was blown away when I spent some time on the website. I thought it was just a brilliant idea. So let's talk about, exactly what Woodchuck does. It's involved demolition and construction on both ends, I believe. And explain how Woodchuck works and how it improves the way we deal with wood waste.
So we work directly with construction companies and manufacturing companies to identify wood materials in their what would otherwise be their waste stream. We want to identify those, separate those, and segregate them. So instead of sending all of that wood to landfills, we use it for its highest best purpose. And you mentioned earlier on the amount of wood waste that comes out of construction. It's tens of millions of tons annually. It's massive. When you look at landfills in North America, they are 30 to 40% wood by volume. It's a massive amount of every landfill is just wood. And wood's a really valuable resource. You can do a lot of different things with wood. Construction and manufacturing have a huge amount of wood waste. So people often think of demolition, right? But also there's new construction and there's all of the packaging. Everything that goes to a construction site or leaves a construction site or goes to a manufacturer or leaves a manufacturer goes on a wooden pallet. Oftentimes those are 6-sided custom pallets. So there's a ton of wood there. I mean, literally tons, literally tens of millions of tons. So if we can use advanced technologies to help us identify those materials, separate them, then we can process those into biomass. And again, the AI technologies can help us make sure that we are maximizing the quality of that biomass. And by that, I really just mean how clean we can get it, how many contaminants we can get out of that. And once you're able to do that, then that wood all of a sudden can be transformed into all sorts of different things. Probably the highest best use, if we can get it clean enough, we can actually turn it back into new particle board or new press board and turn it into new construction materials or new furniture materials. If we can't quite get it that clean, we can still use it for energy production. So you can take all of that wood that would otherwise have gone to the landfill. Instead, we keep it out of the landfill. So we're reducing the landfill usage. We're literally extending the life of those landfills, and we're turning all that material into clean energy. And then kind of another exciting area there is there will always be some wood that's pretty dirty, right? It may have contaminants in it, which could be fire retardants, chemicals, preservatives, oil-based paints. So you can't use that for energy. You can't turn it into new particle board, but you still can use it for other industrial products. And probably one exciting area is hydrogen production. You could take all of those wood materials that are, contaminated or toxic, and we can use those in the production of hydrogen, and it really eliminates the toxicity of it. Literally, it eliminates the toxic waste. It breaks it down into its chemical elements and allows us to suck off the hydrogen, suck off the oxygen, solidify the carbon. So you've done two things, right? You've eliminated toxic waste and you've produced additional clean energy. So pretty exciting.
Yeah, really exciting. Let's talk about the nuts and bolts then, Todd. Let's talk about how it actually works. I've seen some of the images and videos on your website. You literally have a camera on a dumpster. Walk me through what the camera is doing and what people are expected to do with the information that comes from your system.
Yeah, so lots of people talking about AI. I know that's all the chat these days. Specifically, what we use is image recognition. Some people also call it computer vision. But essentially, you're right. We put a camera. We have standalone units. They're our own design. So it's powered by solar. It's got a CPU. It's got a camera. It's got its own LTE, so it can communicate in standalone. We don't need power from our clients. We don't need data connection from our clients. And we'll slap one of these cameras on the side of the dumpster and essentially turn the dumpster into a smart dumpster. And then depending on the construction site, we can have a dumpster for wood. We can have a dumpster for cardboard. We can have a dumpster for plastic. And then again, depending on the site, we might also want to recycle metal. We might want to recycle cement or asphalt. So we'll set up a different collection for each of those. And then what the AI camera system will do is watch that dumpster. So really the first value to the construction company is actually we take over the dumpster management, right? Because right now, dumpster management is a job that the super usually gets, or maybe one of the PMs, but it's a job that's always neglected because nobody wants to do it. Nobody cares about it. So dumpsters are always over full and the hauling company's charging you extra fees, or you got to spend labor to move stuff from one dumpster to the other. So we take over all of that. The camera will watch the dumpster. And when the dumpster is full, we'll have it automatically swapped. So no human being has to do anything. It just automatically swapped. At the same time, as we're watching that dumpster get filled, we watch the material that goes into that dumpster to make sure the right material goes into the dumpster. And if someone puts the wrong material into the dumpster, we have also built in an SMS gateway, so a texting system directly into our platform. So if someone dumps a wheelbarrow full of cinder block into our wood dumpster, we can immediately let the super know, and the super can respond and make that correction. What we found is if we can talk with a superintendent in real time, and they all want to talk by text, so that's fine. We can text with them in real time. They'll make the correction quickly. And when we go to a new job site, that may happen a couple times the first week where we have to ping them and say, hey, get that, whatever it is, get that contamination out of the wood dumpster. But we get pretty good compliance. I'd say by week 2 or week 3, we're typically getting about 99% compliance. So our wood dumpster is all wood. So now our AI cameras have watched that dumpster fill up. So we know it's full of wood. We know roughly how clean it is. We know when it's full. So we pull that wood dumpster. It comes to our site where we begin to process it. And what that really means is we're chipping it up into little teeny chips. We'll run it over a magnet, pull out all the nails and all the staples. We'll run it through a couple of different rolling bins to get out any cement or sand or fines, which basically is sawdust. So we get as clean of a wood chip as possible. And throughout that process, we'll continue to use the image recognition system to tell us how clean is this biomass. Can it be cleaned further? Are there more contaminants that can be removed? Or probably also equally as important, it'll tell us if there's contaminants that cannot be removed, if there's fire retardant in this wood, if there's chemical preservatives in this wood that can't be removed. Well, we can stop wasting our time further processing it. That means it's tier 4 quality wood that's only good for industrial products or hydrogen production. So we can stop processing it and move it over. But other wood that may have, okay, there's more metal, send it back over the magnet, or there's still a bunch of fines in here, run it back through the rollers and let's get all those fines out and maximize the value of that biomass. So the AI really helps us to maximize the quality of the biomass that we're producing.
Short lifespan, single-use plastic glazing is not a sustainable solution for daylighting. Solera is the glass-based alternative for the new millennium. Learn more at advancedglazings.com. Oh man, that is really fantastic. All right, we got to talk about business model. This is the part that I want to understand. Who pays you? Where does the income come from, Todd? What's your revenue stream? Stream?
Yes, it's pretty simple, but it's a great model. So on the front end, our construction clients and our manufacturing clients pay us to haul away their waste, just like they would any other hauler. But again, because we are turning what is otherwise waste into value, we can essentially supplement their hauling costs. So for our typical client, we reduce their waste hauling costs by about 30%. And for a construction company, that's a cost of doing business. So if we can reduce their waste costs by 30%, that goes straight to the bottom line. So it's a really nice value for the construction company. Then we haul that material to our site, we process it into biomass, and then we sell it. Most of our biomass right now, we sell to North Star Clean Energy that turns it into electricity to support the state of Michigan. But we can also sell top quality, really clean biomass to remanufacturing. Or again, as we mentioned, the wood that's dirty or contaminated, we'll still sell that off, but we'll use it for industrial products, hydrogen. So we'll find use of all of it. None of it will go to the landfill. We'll find a use for all of it.
Okay, so location. Let's talk about location. Like, so you mentioned Michigan. Does the business model require that you'll have an actual processing facility, in every state, in every major urban center? How does that side of it work, Todd?
So we've got a lot of flexibility there as well. We actually launched about 18 months ago in Detroit, in the Detroit area. And in Detroit, we sub everything out. We use our platform, the Woodchuck.ai platform, to manage all of the logistics, to track everything.
Okay.
But the hauling's subbed out, the processing subbed out, the delivery subbed out. So it's really our technology platform that's running, tracking, and validating the whole process. In Grand Rapids, we've just expanded into Western Michigan. We have set up a facility in Grand Rapids, and we're operating a little bit differently there. In Grand Rapids, we've set up a full-scale biomass processing facility, and that's our own facility. So in Grand Rapids, we still sub out the local hauling. We want to be a partner to all the local haulers. So Waste Management, Public Services, Green for Life, we want them to view us as a value-added partner. So they can still all do all the local hauling. Just instead of taking the wood to the landfill, they bring it to us. But at our new facility in Grand Rapids, we really look at it right now as an AI innovation center. So we've got a whole bunch of dumpsters on site at our facility and a whole bunch of our camera systems up and running. And we're collecting images all day during different lighting conditions and different weather conditions to really continue to mature our AI. And at the same time, we're doing that at a full-scale biomass facility. So the intent being, we're not developing our AI in a computer lab or on a test bench somewhere. We're developing and maturing our AI in a full-scale biomass processing facility. So right now, it's a huge innovation center. But come this fall, when our AI is really matured to the point where we think it's 99% there, we're ready to go, then it turns into a massive showroom. So then companies from all over North America, or frankly, from anywhere in the world, could come and visit our Grand Rapids facility and see our AI technology platform working at scale at a full-scale biomass processing facility. So we think that's going to put us in a really good position, and we're excited. And of course, Joe, you're invited to come visit us anytime. We'd love to show off our stuff.
I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to do that. That would be really cool. To do a show, like an on-site show, would be fantastic.
That'd be great.
Not as good for a podcast, but for YouTube for sure, it would be really great.
So I'll tell you that the star of the show in Grand Rapids, we have a 1,000 horsepower all electric horizontal grinder. We can put a log with a 6-foot radius and drop that into the grinder. It'll spit it out in about 7 seconds. It's massive and it's awesome. And it's all electric. So we're generating no carbon. There's no diesel plume. There's no noise. It's just massive electric grinder. So we're processing biomass with zero carbon emissions. It's pretty awesome.
So let's talk about the customers that are using the platform. So if you sub out the platform to somebody in a different geography or whatever, but they're renting the platform or subscribing to the platform, Now, when they have an end product, do you sell the end product for them? Do you help them with that, or are they on their own for that end product? I'm just trying to understand, the
Yeah.
various sources of income for Woodchuck.
Honestly, right now, we give basically our technology, our tracking, and our reporting to all of our clients for free. So anybody that we're
Okay.
diverting waste for them, we give them all the reporting and tracking for free. That will change at some point this fall when our platform is really matured to the point where we're super happy with it. At that point, it'll become another option for them. If they want to continue to get all of that reporting and tracking and validation, they can buy a simple subscription. So it'll be a simple SaaS subscription, or if we have operators in other geographies, in other states that want to license our platform to do their own tracking and monitoring, we can issue them and they can basically, same thing, they can buy a subscription to our platform and use it to track all of their own operations. So we can simply expand by licensing our technology. Or if we find, a fantastic location like Grand Rapids, Michigan, there's so much wood waste there with all the furniture manufacturing, it's an ideal place. We can choose to be the operator there. South Bend, Indiana, same thing. Tons of furniture manufacturers, literally kilotons of wood waste. So we will definitely be expanding, and we will be the operator in South Bend, Indiana shortly. But the macro factors that make Woodchuck work, the massive excess of wood waste that we want to reduce, and the need for more energy, those macro factors exist not just in North America, but globally. They exist everywhere. So we're very specifically building the platform so that we can license this technology to companies all over the world.
All over the world. And then again, the biomass anywhere in the world, it's owned by the licensee.
Yeah, that'll be up to the services that so whoever the
Okay.
local operator is.
Okay.
Yeah, if they're doing the local hauling and they're processing it themselves, then yeah, they'll have the option to sell that. That'll be their own business model.
Love the
We'll provide them technology to help them do it more efficiently.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, I was going to ask you about franchise models and things like that, but we just covered all of that. So I'm going to skip that next question. Beautiful job explaining the business model. This is a good time to change gears just a little bit. You recently wrote a book. You're an author as well. The book is called Unleashing Abundant Energy. And by the way, I saw there was a testimonial from a former guest on the show, Nick Bagatellos, and friend. Tell us what the book is about and how you found new things to say on the subject of energy.
Yeah, absolutely. So appreciate the shout out to Nick. Nick is fantastic. He and I
Yeah.
went to college together,
Oh,
a
wow. Okay.
longtime friend. And, he really has been a voice for net zero in the built environment for decades. He's really a recognized thought leader in innovation in net zero. So love to shout out to Nick. He's awesome. So unleashing abundant energy really takes a look at this whole issue. The genesis is really with Woodchuck, right? And what unleashing abundant energy does, it looks at the current energy environment, which is a pretty complicated environment. We have lots of different sources of energy, and there's different people that like different sources. But at the end of the day, the demand for energy is absolutely exploding. So globally right now, we produce about 26,000 terawatts of energy. Over the next 20 to 25 years, most people think we're going to have to double that. We're going to have to get to over 50, probably 52 terawatts, 52,000 terawatts of energy. So how are we going to do that? And a lot of the conversation is, what's the silver bullet? Will solar get us there? Will wind get us there? What gets us to that magic number? And the reality is, spoiler alert, it's all the above. We need all of them. If we look at the current production of all the renewable energy, so solar, wind, thermal, geo, throw nuclear in there as well. It's not really renewable, but it's super clean. So if you throw all that in there, if we were able to triple the production of all of those different sources over the next 25 years, that doesn't get us to 52,000 terawatts. We're still going to need oil. We're still going to need coal. And we're going to need more than we produce right now. We're probably still going to need to increase our use of fossil fuels by about 30% in order to get to the amount of energy that we need to fuel the rising energy demand across the globe. So the book really says, right, what are our realistic options? What are the costs of all of these different options? What is the cost of solar compared to the cost of hydrogen, compared to the cost of offshore wind? What's the cost of all of these things so we can make an informed decision, so we can have an informed discussion about what are our options and what are the levers we can pull, because we need more energy, but we can influence the balance of that. How much of it comes from renewable? How much of it comes from nuclear? How much of it comes from fossil fuels? But we can make an informed decision, and really this can become a non-political discussion where we really look at what are the realistic options, what are the costs, and what are the decisions we want to make to meet this rising energy demand. That's what the book's about.
So give us a little taste of some of the conclusions that you drew, Todd. Like, do you make any recommendations on we really need to put more of an effort into solar? We need to put more of an effort into, renewing our love affair with nuclear. Was there any big recommendations like that that you could share?
There are. I think natural resources vary dramatically across geographies. And whatever your geography is, you need to lean into your natural resources, right? If you're in Iceland or you're in Wyoming, where you have a lot of geothermal, you should lean into that. Geothermal is a really clean, really nice energy source. And honestly, geothermal they're currently kind of rediscovering themselves. They're stealing a lot of technology and a lot of techniques from the traditional oil and gas. So they're doing horizontal drilling. They're doing pressurized and thermal fracking, which really, arguably makes thermal scalable for the first time. So that's pretty interesting. In Arizona, I'm from Arizona, we have sunshine 365. So we should use solar. If you're London and you're surrounded by the seas, yeah, you should use wave technology and wind technology. So what are your local resources? And you need to lean into those. Because one of the biggest costs and inefficiencies in energy is transmitting that energy across geographies. So if you can generate more of your power locally and you have to import less, that's more efficient. And by, being more efficient, it's more cost effective. You brought up nuclear. Nuclear is really a great option. And, traditionally we've used fission, which is the separating of two atoms to generate power. And, we've had a couple of problems. We've had Chernobyl and Fukushima. So we've had some issues. And so people have shied away from that. Particularly the United States has really moved away from expanding nuclear. And a lot of cases, we've shut facilities down. But there are new technologies that make it safer, particularly micro reactors, where you can set up smaller scale operations right at a manufacturing facility or a construction site. So you can drastically reduce your risk. So I think that's an option that we can look at over the coming decades. But that also takes a lot of time to get something like that designed, approved, installed. Fusion, if there is a silver bullet, it's fusion. So fusion is the nuclear reaction. We're actually combining two atoms to release energy. It's much cleaner, it's much safer. And I think it's possible that our children could live in a limitless clean energy future powered by fusion. But you and I probably aren't going to see that. We're still decades away from that. And there's a lot of really cool startups putting a lot of effort and energy into developing fusion. The challenge with fusion is in order to ignite that fusion reaction, it takes a massive amount of energy. And all the technologies that's been developed, it's difficult to prove that once you've invested all of that energy to ignite the fusion reaction, can you get enough energy out to make that energy positive and make that be a limitless energy? We're definitely on the right track. We're seeing things trend the right direction. So I do think we will see that, but not for several decades. So until we get to that clean, limitless fusion future, in the meantime, it's all of the above, right? What are your local resources? If you're in Texas, absolutely, you should be drilling because you've got a ton of oil and natural gas there. So you should be using that. And, it's such a surplus and it's so cost effective that, yeah, we're going to continue to export fossil fuels to other geographies to meet the energy demand that they need. But if you've got biomass and you've got solar and you've got wind in your area, absolutely use it, maximize your local production.
Right on. Yeah, very insightful. I have to jump on the fusion thing a little bit. I've been following that, not quite as religiously as I should be, but I understand that recently in China, there was what they ran 17 minutes or something like that. Is that the number? It was a really long time, like a big leap from the previous amount of time that they've been able to run in a fusion reactor. Are you familiar with that story, or do you know where that was? It that
So
long?
China's definitely ahead in fusion. They put a lot more research and development into that, as has Russia. And really, when the Western world turned away from nuclear, China and Russia did not. So they are definitely ahead of the rest of the world. It's another really exciting nuclear development out of China is, are you familiar with thorium? So thorium is a
Right.
natural element similar to plutonium, but it has a much shorter half-life, so it breaks down much faster, so it's much less dangerous. And thorium is an element that is readily available in mining waste. So if you have a massive mining operation, often you will have thorium in your mining waste. And China has really recently realized that with some of their massive mining operations, and they have some of the largest mining operations in the world, they literally have hundreds of tons of mining waste that is packed full of thorium. And then if you use thorium in a molten salt reactor, which is a really nice new reactor technology that makes, again, much safer with a lot of natural built-in safety components. So for China, they have the capacity to use thorium in molten salt reactors that could literally power China for centuries. So they're definitely in a good position there on the nuclear side.
Yeah, that's amazing. I imagine, so I assume the molten salt like takes the role of the heavy water. It's to slow down, to control the speed of the reaction.
Right. And
Okay.
because molten salt boils at a much higher temperature than, say, water,
Yeah.
it allows you to operate at higher temperatures, which allows you to generate electricity or whatever power more efficiently.
Right.
The other great thing about the molten salt reactors is it has a natural kind of a frozen salt plug. And so if for some reason your temperatures do exceed where you want them to be, that salt plug will melt. It'll drain all the fluids out of the system and the reaction will stop. So it's kind of a very nice natural break in the system to avoid something like Chernobyl happening again. So
Right.
it's pretty cool technology. And again, China's ahead of us and they're in a great spot. So I think you're definitely going to see that as a big part of their energy future.
Manage the connection between building occupants and the outside world using Solera translucent glass. Learn more at advancedglazings.com. Right on. All right. That was an amazing conversation. Thank you for that. I want to go back to Woodchuck just for a little bit. Mass timber in construction and design is really hot these days. It's gorgeous and it has a number of other advantages that we've talked about on the show. Does mass timber fit into your plans in any way? Like, is there anything different about mass timber that Woodchuck would have to adjust to, or is it just the same as any other wood?
We love mass timber, huge fans of mass timber. Obviously, it's a natural material. As you said, it's beautiful. It allows us to not produce more steel. Steel takes an incredible amount of energy to be produced, and then it has to be transported, and it's heavy. Mass timber is a natural material. It takes much less energy to put together a big mass timber beam. So from those standpoints, just in terms of energy efficiency, mass timber is awesome. It's also beautiful. And from Woodchuck's standpoint, yeah, when you're producing mass timber, you're going to have wood residuals or wood waste. And of course, we want to make sure that if you're manufacturing mass timber or if you're building with mass timber, we'd like to make sure that none of your residuals, none of your waste goes to landfill. We'll take all of it and we'll turn it into its highest, best use. And honestly, from our standpoint, mass timber waste is it's fantastic because it's pure wood. It's got some resins or some glues in it. That's no problem. We can take care of that. So mass timber wood waste can really be used for a number of different, the highest best use once we processed it. So yeah, we're huge proponents of mass timber.
Right on. Okay, I want to go to a very different place. I want to talk about circular economy. Well, maybe not that different. I want to talk about the circular economy, and I want to talk about being more purposeful about this sort of approach. Is there a scenario where, you can work with the architect, the building owner at the early design stage, right? And, even if it takes 2 to 3 years before they cut ground or whatever, is there a model where Woodchuck is involved very early in the planning process with the expectation that it's going to be integral into the construction process? And then, well, let's just talk about the construction process. Do you see a way to become part of the design process from the very beginning? And if so, what are the advantages of that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the strengths of the Woodchuck.ai platform, or the secret sauce, if you will, is our ability to improve the quality of the biomass that we're producing. So for most people in material processing right now in this space, whatever the quality of the feedstock that comes in, you process it and the resulting biomass is roughly the same quality. By using the AI recognition and identifying contaminants and processing those contaminants out, we can improve the quality of the biomass. So whatever feedstock we get in, we can improve the quality so we have a higher quality biomass coming out the other end. What that allows us to do is maximize the percentage of our biomass that reaches that tier one quality. So tier one quality, as we talked about early on, that can be used to remanufacture new construction materials. So if we can take wood waste from a project, process it, send it to our partner that turns it back into particle board, new construction materials, you can imagine a very natural circular economy there, right? Where we're working with a construction company, we take all of the waste, we turn it back into construction materials that go back to either to that same job site or to their next job site. So now all of a sudden we're not using virgin plywood or virgin particle board. we're using wood and materials that have been created from what was previously wood waste. So you can create a truly circular economy. And you can literally do that on within an individual job site, right? If you've got a 6, 9, 12-month project or 2-year or 3-year project, absolutely, we can take that waste, process it, turn it back into new construction materials and bring it back to that very same job site. A literal circular economy. And you
Oh,
can do that over and over at job sites anywhere where you have the ability to produce new construction materials.
right on. Yeah, I love that. This is the way of the future. It's a plan for circular economy from the outset is absolutely the future. And this is a great tool for helping us get there.
It is. And I think we're starting to see construction companies under more and more pressure to provide more sustainable options. So, big enterprise leaders like Amazon and IKEA and Ford, Microsoft, they really want to be sustainable. They're looking for ways to do that. So they're putting pressure on their construction companies and their architects and their developers to be more sustainable. So if part of that conversation can be what are the recovered materials or circular economy that we can build into these projects, then I think there's a lot of pressure from the end clients to do that. So if a construction company can go to Amazon and say, yes, we can build your next couple of distribution centers, and as part of that, we will set up a circular economy and we'll turn all of your wood waste into new construction materials that we'll use on your job site. I think that's pretty attractive to a lot of those end customers. So I think that's really where the pressure will come on construction companies and architects and developers. But I think also for a construction company, that can become a value-added service that they offer that can help them win jobs, right? If you have partnerships with, say, Woodchuck, and we can help you to divert all of your wood waste and turn it into new construction materials, you can bring that as a service to help you win that next job.
Oh, fantastic. All right, I'm going off script a little bit again, Todd. Forgive me, but what's the future with metal, with woodchuck and metal? Is there a play there as well?
Honestly, we started with wood
Okay.
because wood is such an incredibly flexible material. You can do so much with it. But our very first job was actually just north of Detroit. We were working for a construction company, Ryan Construction, and they were building a distribution center for Amazon. And Amazon has really high sustainability goals. They wanted 70% of their wood waste diverted. And so we came in to help them do that. And month one, I think we hit 90% wood diversion, and we sent them the report. And they were really happy with that report. And they said, hey, this is great, but what other materials can you help us with? We really want to see a 360 report of all of the different waste materials on our site. So we very quickly added cardboard and plastic for them. And we actually kind of anticipated that. So we built our platform to be really flexible so we can add new materials quickly. So we started with wood, we quickly added cardboard and plastic, but now we have a recent IKEA client where we identified 8 different materials that we're now recycling for them, including metal. So metal and plastic are unique in that the way that you recycle them is really important. If you have a big bin and you throw all of your plastic or all of your metal into a single container, it's not very cost effective to recycle, and honestly, most of it ends up in a landfill. But if you can pre-sort it into different groups, so plastic's the great example, right? Virgin clear plastic, like all that plastic wrap that we see all the time, that virgin clear plastic. If you collect that separately, it's got a lot of value, and you can really have some nice cost reductions by recycling that plastic. Most pallets come wrapped in all that clear plastic. At the same time, you have those black binder plastic that goes around the outside of it. That's much harder to recycle. It has a lot less value. So if you throw the clear plastic and that black binder in the same bin, most likely that's going to end up in the landfill. But if instead you separate those two and you keep the clear plastic separate, you can get a really nice rebate back and reduce your costs. Same thing is absolutely true for metal. There's a whole bunch of different types of metal. And on a given job site, you might have 3, 4, 5 different types of metal. Different metals have different values. If you keep all of your copper separate, you get a ton of value for copper, right? Keep your sheet metal separate. The Woodchuck.ai platform can identify kind of any number of different materials. And if you have a brand new material that we haven't separated for you in the past, our AI now is mature enough that it learns really quickly. So we can add new materials for you very quickly. So it's different types of plastic, different types of metal, cement, asphalt. We can pretty much help you with almost all of your materials. The goal being to get to really to zero landfill. That's the goal. And that goal is still a little bit of a ways off, but we can sure get a lot closer. And that also comes back to some of the big end clients we're talking about. Like a lot of big end clients they want to be at zero waste in their production environment. So once their building is built and they're up and operating, they want to be zero waste in that environment. But now I think we're starting to get attention on, well, how can we also be zero waste during the construction phase? So I think we're getting more attention to that pre-production phase, and we're actually building the buildings. Can we get closer to zero waste? And we certainly can. And Woodchuck, that's what Woodchuck is all about, is helping clients get to that zero waste.
That's amazing. Todd, thank you so much for this. So there's one question that I ask every guest, even though I know it's not your world, let's have some fun anyway. And I ask every guest to answer this question from whatever perspective they'd like. So I know it's not your world, but I'm asking the question, what makes a great building?
What makes a great building? Tons of natural light.
Excellent.
I'm a huge fan of the more light, the better. We're human beings. And I know from an energy perspective, glass is the biggest loss of energy out of your building. But this comes back to our buddy, Nick Bagatellis, that we talked about at the beginning of the show. So he has spent his whole professional career in glass, in glazing, and really improving the R factor of glass. And he's got a new project he's working on around vacuum sealed glass that will take glass. Right now, today, you probably already know this, but like single pane glass is R1, right? Double pane glass can be R2, but still compared to, say, a regular wall, which is like R30, all of your energy loss, all your heat transfers through your windows. Nick is working on a project now where they're approaching R20 for glass. So really exciting, can make massive glass buildings much more energy efficient. So I love as much glass as possible. If I could live in a glass house, I would. And I think this new vacuum sealed glass could actually make that might be energy efficient. We could actually do that. So it's pretty cool. So that's my beautiful building, as much glass as possible.
Right on. I'm in the world of natural daylighting, so I'm a huge believer in that for sure. Okay. Is there anything else, Todd, that you'd like to share that I didn't cover? Any big announcements or any exciting news that we should share?
Well, I really appreciate you having me on. This was a great conversation. And so Unleashing Abundant Energy has done really well. It's been pretty successful. So we quickly put together, just finished book number 2. So book number 2 should be hitting Amazon within the next week. So look for book number 2. And book number 2 really takes a look at another strategy. So book number 1 is all about how do we produce enough energy to meet the growing demand. Book number 2 really looks at things like vacuum sealed glass. How can we be more efficient? And particularly in the built environment. 40% of global energy goes to building buildings, heating buildings, cooling buildings. So if we can make buildings more efficient, we can dramatically reduce that steep incline in energy demand. So maybe we don't have to get to 52,000 terawatts. If we're much more efficient in our energy use, maybe we only have to get to 45,000 terawatts. So book 2 really looks at how can we be more efficient, specifically in the built environment.
Excellent. And when that book is out and published, give me a shout and we'll get you back on the show to talk about it in a little more depth.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Todd. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.
Take care.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Better Buildings for Humans. For more information on the world's best light diffusing and highly insulating glass glazing, please visit advancedglazings.com.